fine today, but I couldn't hear hardly anyone was talking about it.
Start now. I don't want Vicky to start.
Oh, Lord, keep my mouth shut.
Tonight's going to be an interesting discussion. Not so much, I think, because the millions just is related to the whole building project.
Right. Well, and hopefully that'll clarify.
Well, it's going to be divided. Well, you know, when you guys changed that rate on the same page, and the debate, now I'm hearing different things. That's why we have open public meetings to talk about it. And ask questions if you want. And then I know you will.
Thank you, everyone, for being here this evening. We're going to call our meeting to order of the Morgan County Council for February 7th, 2022. I've asked Vicki Kivett to lead us in prayer, and Jason Maxwell is going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'll all stand, please.
I pledge allegiance to
the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dear Heavenly Father, we just thank you for this day and all the blessings that have come with it. We'll pray that you be with those who are less fortunate. We give a special thanks for this past few days of our county highway, our EMTs, and our public service safety people for the tremendous job that they've done keeping us safe. Dear Lord, we just pray as we approach yet another election season that the right people get elected for the right reasons and that our work continue to be pleasing to you. Dear Lord, we ask that you be with each and every one of us, be with those who are homeless, be with those who are sick, be with those who are lost, and be with those who are serving our country both near and far. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Everyone received the agenda and the minutes, copies of the minutes. I look for a motion to approve the minutes from our September 15th, 2021 meeting, December 6th, 2021, December 21st, 2021, and January 3rd, 2022.
Melissa Green moves to approve the minutes for September, December 6th, December 21, January 3rd.
Thank you. Have a motion. Do we have a second?
second.
Jason Maxwell seconds. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Same sign. Motion carries 7-0. It's our February meeting. We've already got additional appropriations, I see.
Yeah.
It's always good to see how long it takes us to start needing money. Oh, yeah. Well, Jim.
Jim, what's happened?
Jim, have you had a rough month?
I thought we do. Didn't know about that.
Humor.
Yes. So it looks like we're going to begin the additional appropriations from the general fund. The first one up is the well, you want to explain it a little bit, Dan?
There are several here, and I don't know if you'll entertain just kind of taking these all in under one motion, but I'll point out which ones are actually budget cleanup. The first one is the prosecuting budget for the forensic analyst. That position was discontinued for 2022 and replaced with the additional investigator, the part-time investigator. But the last or the first payroll in 2022, it covered the last 2 weeks of 2021, and there was someone in that position at that time, and so we had to pay her, and so there was no budget for that, and so the $1,013 is that pay.
Want to take it one at a time on that one?
Or I can explain the others.
Everybody want to take them one by one, or do you want to let him explain them and do it all at once?
If they're all related to budget, just
Yeah,
put
they
them all
are.
together.
They are.
Thank you, Kelly.
The next one is Superior Court number 1, the bailiff. That is due to the fact that after the budget was set, that the council changed the rate of pay for the bailiff. For Superior Court number 2, that additional for bailiff of 176, the same case. And the Superior Court 2 failed to include in their budget request the money that they need for years of service for one of their employees. And the Circuit Court bailiff is the same as the others. And then the ADAPT budget, after the council was shuffling around the different probation officers and so forth, the ADAPT coordinator was budgeted in the ADAPT department of the general fund, but not at the amount that it needed to be, and it was short $829.
Okay. So these numbers also include this commissioner's portion for a grand total down here.
The grand total includes that, right? But
We could subtract that out and just make a motion on that difference, and then come back to that.
Subtracting the 1030 out,
Yes,
and what's the total?
I haven't gotten there yet.
But,
You see what I'm saying?
yeah, I follow what you're saying now.
Yeah, just a minute, let me do the math. $14,323, is that what you get?
That sounds right.
It's right.
Yeah.
14,323. Okay. Just doing the math there on these cleanup items within the budget, the total comes to 14,323 on the things Dan has just gone over in clearing those out and paying those final amounts on the position that has been replaced. So, yeah, if you take the total, the 1044 down here at the
Yeah,
bottom.
so that includes the COVID testing supplies, that
No, it does not.
14,000.
So it's going to include the 1,013 for part-time. It's going to be this bailiff, this bailiff, this bailiff, the ADAPT. Oh, it is including the 10,000.
That didn't add up.
So, yeah, so we need, right, but we're going to take that, we need to take out the 10,903. I want to do that one separate, please.
Okay. Yeah, because we went, all right. And what was it, 10,000, how much?
Or 10,903.
Okay. 903.
Yeah.
3,420.
420?
Yeah,
Okay. Thought that sounded a little high.
yeah.
Okay, so 3,420 on the cleanup items within the budget. So including those, the replacement of the part-time investigator, the remaining pay that was due for the forensic analyst, and then those other minuscule raise parts. So we're just looking for a motion for the $3,420.
Chip Keller will make that motion to approve the 3,420 for the budget cleanup items.
Thank you, Chip.
Troy Sprinkle, second.
Get that, Deb, Chip, and Troy. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Same sign. Motion carries 7-0. So we're going to come up to there's a couple things there under the commissioners' additional appropriations. One is the $10,903, which Josh had brought to us, kind of taking a straw poll last meeting on how we felt on that one. I think we did end up ordering those. Was that the case?
Yes, we did order them. I can't tell you if they've arrived or not, but it looks like we probably dodged a bullet with needing them. But as we said it the first time around, we can still use them to get our public safety people back in the lineup more quickly.
Right. So,
And the request was for 10,800, and it is 10,800 in the other locations that it's advertised. So I wasn't sure.
10,800?
Yeah.
Okay.
Quite how I got that.
And did everyone remember that from last month with the discussion on that? Is there any questions?
I don't have a question. I'm surprised that it wasn't advertised out of the ARPA funds. So I'm highly opposed with them being paid out of any fund other than our ARPA funds. This was a supposed federal mandate, and since the federal government was mandating this and they sent us money through ARPA, I think it should be coming out of the ARPA fund. It was not advertised out of there, so we can't do that tonight. So I'm opposed to it at this point, coming out of any fund but ARPA, but you all can.
Well, that was a question I had too. Is there a reason it's not being taken out of ARPA? or-
The only reason I can think of is there's going to be a lot of bureaucratic oversight for $10,000. Is that something we want to push through there? If we think we won't spend the money in other ways, then yes, I would suggest that. But that's your guys' call. I mean, we don't have a strong opinion.
I'd like to see it out of that.
I-
It's just
it
pretty
needs to
cut and
come out of
dry,
ARPA
pretty
fund.
clear.
Is there a way that we can pay it out of general and be reimbursed?
No,
No.
it has to be spent directly from the ARPA fund,
Okay.
if it's for anything.
And Kim, what did you say? I didn't hear, you had a comment? No? Okay. Okay.
That there was a pending
Right.
potential requirement of us. And so we were kind of on the spot to have to get them ordered while we could.
That's right.
Yeah.
I mean, this isn't a gray area. This would be an expense that would qualify
Right.
for that,
Mm-hmm.
correct?
Yeah, I don't have any concerns about it qualifying.
I feel like it needs to come out of.
Agreed.
Agreed. But since it's not been advertised that way, can we re-advertise
Yeah,
it?
we'll
without-
re-advertise it.
So we can table it and,
I'll make a motion to table it and have it advertised out of the ARPA fund at our next meeting.
okay.
And
So we
Melissa
have
Green
a-
seconds that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to table the $10,800 for the COVID testing supplies till the next meeting and make it an advertising to come out of the ARPA funds. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Same sign. Motion carries 7-0.
Who seconded that motion?
Melissa. Yeah, sometimes it's a little hard for Deb to, not Deb personally, but just to hear down here who motions and seconds. So if we could say our names and who makes the motion and who seconds, it does help.
Okay.
And then, are you going to be up there also for the $1,030,000?
Yep.
All right, if you want to get into that, we'll be glad to hear.
This is one I think we've talked about a few times over the last few months. If you remember, this is for the design services to pull it out of the bot to go ahead and get those under contract now. What was I
Can you
gonna-
turn your mic up?
Is this better?
Speak so softly.
This is related to our bot project to pull the design services out of what we will initially bond. If you guys remember, we went ahead and signed the resolution to be able to reimburse ourselves out of bonds at a future date. And so this is the additional for us to come forward and pay for those pay for those design services.
And it will be reimbursable, and it's not going to get billed for how long? You said, I mean, we're not going to have to pay it all in one lump sum, correct?
Yeah, right now I have asked them at the behest of the commissioners to have bonds ready to close around the end of April. That doesn't mean it can't slide a little bit one way or the other. But once bonds close, we could be reimbursed. I'm sure Kelly could talk through the mechanics of that a little bit if you have more questions.
Getting real.
Yep,
It's
it
getting real.
is.
Big one.
So it's $1,030,000, and we have a choice of where we can take that from, correct?
It's advertised in the general fund. It's also in the Lit Economic Development Fund, and it's advertised in the Cume Capital Development, in the Rainy Day Fund, and the Riverboat Revenue Sharing Fund.
And keep in mind, wherever it comes from, it's going to be put back in there once the bond money is there. So I don't know that there's a right or a wrong, but I always like to protect that general fund myself, so that's not where I'd like to see it come from.
And just so you're aware, Dan had pointed out that we should probably clarify our rainy day resolutions that the commissioners, or ordinance the commissioners did, to make sure named bond proceeds is something that could be reimbursed. So
Good.
if you guys want to go that route, you have that option.
Thank you.
You might explain our rainy day fund to some of the newer people on our council.
Yes, please.
Okay, Rainy Day Fund is a fund that, over time, excess or surplus dollars have been receipted or deposited to. A large share of that came about several years ago or a few years ago when the state distributed to the county excess or surplus income tax that had accumulated at the state. And then, and that was, I can't recall the dollar amount, but a large share of that rainy day fund is that amount. The other thing, other items is, that's pretty much it for Morgan County, except that the county council last year or year before did deposit in that fund there's provision in the statute where you can transfer 10% of the budget over into the rainy day fund, and the council did that. And then also there was the money from the one of the COVID grants that was deposited in the rainy day fund. And then annually, the county council can transfer, now it's 15% of the budget. That's a temporary change, and it sunsets 2024. 2024. But you can transfer up to 15% of the budget into the rainy day fund from the general fund, or any amount under that. That's the cap, is 15%. And then after the temporary 15%, then it'll go back to 10%, in which you could do that annually. And if time allows tonight, I was going to talk to the council about whether or not you want to do that now for the 2021 budget and transfer money into the rainy day fund. So,
I want to discuss that.
But the rainy day fund, it can be used for any governmental purpose. But in theory, it's as it's named, it's money for a rainy day.
Things that come up that's unexpected.
But it's not restricted to that, but that's generally what you would want to use that form for, is if you have some financial downturn or dilemma that you wanted to use rainy day fund to bridge you through that.
Or issues that come up that we may need to, just like this, that you may get reimbursed on.
Right.
That we can put it back there, but use it for that shortened period of time.
Yeah, for the bot funds or the reimbursement, I mean, you could, I think it would be wise, but that's up to the council, to budget the rainy day fund and use it now for those reimbursable bot expenditures, because that's just going to be a short term where the money will go right back into the rainy day fund.
Not already earmarked for something else, it's just there in case we need it.
Right.
Not specifically earmarked for anything, no.
And then with the whole, I'm sorry, Chip.
No, go ahead.
With the whole amount, that whole $1,030,000 come out of that account, that there's enough to sustain that?
The rainy day fund, yes.
Like, what, 7 million in there roughly?
Yeah.
Okay.
We get more money added in every year.
Okay.
usually.
And then why do we have the opportunity for 15% over 10% this time?
The legislature did that. I think
Okay.
it was in response to COVID, giving counties an opportunity.
Okay.
Any further discussion, or do I hear a motion
And
on where to move that
Will
from?
we move then, if we decide on that, to make it from that fund tonight, or?
We'll
okay.
choose, when
Okay.
the motion's made, you make the motion of which fund you want it to come from, or go to. Come from.
This is for, I mean, just so for, there's other people that aren't here, we're talking about the bot project, so let's just, I mean, this is for the possible that we've already kind of discussed, the parking garage. So obviously I voted against that. Moving forward with that, I feel like it's an excessive amount of money to spend. So I am not in favor. I will be voting against this because I'm not in favor of the project moving forward as presented.
Any other comments or discussion?
I have a question. So this money has already been spent on the design that we've seen, or it's just,
No.
okay, that's not what, the original design that we saw, the options?
Correct, so we brought the couple options. And at the direction of the council, you said go ahead and get us essentially schematic level drawings. And so
Yes.
this is to pull the design out to take it all the way
Okay.
to finish.
Any other questions or discussion?
And is this $1,030,000 just for the parking garage?
No, this is design services
Of
encompassing.
the whole
It's-
thing?
Yeah, it's finishing, it's the building addition part that we talked about. It's all the master planning to take that to 30-level design. It's construction level drawings of the building addition, parking garage. It encompasses a lot of stuff, site work.
It's the front end of work, paperwork.
Or project?
Yes.
Fairgrounds as
The
well,
entire
right?
project.
Yes, design work
Fairgrounds
for the
as well.
fairgrounds too, yes, thank you.
Design level of it.
Any other questions?
Other discussion?
concerns?
So we're looking for a motion to move $1,030,000.
I'll bite the bullet. Chip Keller will make a motion to approve the additional appropriation of $1,030,000 for design services to be taken out of the rainy day fund.
Thank you, Chip. Kim Meredith will second that motion. We have a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-1,
Thank you.
or 6-2. Was
Or
there
5-2,
or five? My goodness.
sorry.
So we had 2 that voted against, okay. Okay, thank you. All right, so where am I at now? Oh, that's what I was looking at.
Did the COVID, they tabled that surveyor.
Getting ready for you, Terry. Good evening.
We are here to ask for an additional appropriation of $25,630. Monrovia come to us last fall after budget time to ask if we can help with the drainage problems in the buffer zones. And we said we'd look at it. Josh and I met with them, and they've got one site on the south down on Baltimore Road right across from the commercial area they have that has a lot of issues. They've got pipes that are undersized. The water's coming over the road. We're going to look at that ditch all the way down to where it comes out by Fite's property, which is about a mile down. And all those culverts are undersized. So we're going to try to help them there. We're going to look at all the retention ponds in the commercial park and make sure they're functioning properly. We're going to look at Baltimore Road. We're going to look where the water comes under 42, where it comes down on Baltimore Road. Monrovia is putting a park in, and they're having trouble with drainage, so it'll help their drainage there. And the other part's up on Everett Road. There's several acres that probably going to come up for commercial development, and we're going to make sure they have a proper drain to get to our ditch, and that's what this study's for. And we told Monrovia we'd see them, we'd try to help them. They just don't have the funding to do that.
Is all of this outside of their
It's in buffer.
town limits?
It's a buffer.
But it's outside of their limits, though?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So
Well,
is this the
all but the-
county's responsibility or Monrovia's? I mean,
Buffer's
buffer
ours.
zones are still county-owned.
The buffer zones, we do all the drainage in the buffer zones.
Okay.
Yeah. And the only spot that's not in, there's a spot that in the commercial part that one of the retention ponds is in the town, but it's all the same. But it's all coming into our ditch, so we got to make sure it works properly. So it's not our ditch, but it's a ditch we're going to study. We maintain Baltimore Road and the commercial sites in the buffer zone. So, yep.
So this is just consulting, and then if we go forth on the project, it would be funded by the county as well?
No, the project, which project? Vic?
Any
This is
of it?
$25,000.
I mean, if it's ruled that you need bigger culverts or you need to clean ditches, the county would be on for funding that as well?
Possibly. It's all depends on what we find. We really don't know right now.
And in terms of, I don't know if it made it into your packet, but in terms of doing the study, the commissioners signed a letter of concurrence with Surveyor Brock.
So, it's just a thing we can help Monrovia out with. I get calls all the time from Monrovia wanting us to help them out. And we can't help them in the city limits, but this is something we can help them with. We approved one of the retention ponds. We approved that commercial site, and then once we approved it, Monrovia annexed it off. So we're just not sure if the ponds are functioning properly, because once we approved it, they took over and we didn't inspect it. So now we're gonna go inspect those ponds. So, and we're gonna look at all the road ditches. We're gonna make sure on Everett Road, we know how big the ditches need to be there. Up on a commercial site and down Baltimore Road, there's no side ditches right now.
No ditch.
So we're gonna study that too. And that'll help Tony out a little bit. So, you know, and it's just something that the county, the commissioners and I thought we should do for them. So,
Yeah, there's a lot going on out there. Kelly, did you have a comment?
I have a
Okay.
motion.
Okay, we'll take that too.
I'll make a motion to approve $25,630 out of the Local Income Tax Economic Development Fund for consulting.
And Troy Sprinkle will second that.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0.
thank you.
Thank you, Terry. All right, so we got Terry. We already did our A lot of that was
Next
just where we
is
could
the
take
rainy
the
day for the elected officials, the supplemental pay. You don't have a letter on it.
That's what I was looking for. We don't have a letter on it?
No, you know how that you did the employees last year out of the rainy day, but we couldn't do the officials.
Oh, yes,
Yeah, we
okay.
added it to the salary ordinance.
Yes.
This is the follow-up. on
Okay.
that.
I don't know if most of you remember this, but we couldn't, elected officials couldn't be paid an additional amount after their salary was set, but then we had done the the COVID stipend, and so we had to wait to do it as of the new year. So this is just cleaning that up and that money, so.
This is in the rainy day fund,
Yes.
which is the same fund that the employee amount was paid from.
Supplement.
Yes,
So there's a per FICA and then the supplement.
So a total of
Amount.
$25,010?
Yep.
That sound right?
yes, Kelly, that does.
Yes.
So we look for a motion of $25,010 from the rainy day fund.
Kelly Akala will make a motion for $25,010 out of the rainy day fund to pay for the COVID employee supplement and related taxes.
Kim Meredith will second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you, Kelly. All right. That takes care of all that, then, doesn't it, Dan?
You got now we have the health department grant.
Right, that
The
part's.
COVID grant, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Jeannie, would you like to come up and go over this on the health department and the nurses? Oh, right here. Salary ordinance amendment.
Good evening. The state is giving us $330,000 to hire
Yeah.
3 nurses, LPNs, and it is to kind of coordinate with the schools liaison, I'm sorry. It's to be liaison with the schools to get their reporting, COVID reporting, kind of work at getting everyone vaccinated, all kinds of COVID stuff. They are getting ready to revamp the deliverables that we're going to have to meet because everything's changed so much, reporting and everything else. So they are getting ready to kind of revamp that, but we do have the grant. The contract's been signed. We just need to get the funds appropriated.
And you've given us a breakdown here of these totals. One thing that kind of jumped out at me was contractual services. in the amount of 20,000.
20,000, yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know what all we're going to have to do with it, and we very well may move some of that around.
Okay.
But I just kind of guesstimated as much as I could.
Okay. The council can't enter into those or can't give you the go-ahead on a contractual.
right.
It's commissioners, this is the
Okay.
only thing. I just want to make sure
Right.
we're not giving you the go-ahead to enter into some contractual
Oh,
agreement that
no,
we
I
don't have the
understand.
authority to do.
Anything that's, yeah, like that, I'll have to go to the commissioners.
The
but-
commissioners, yes.
Yeah. But, I mean, like, if we have the service who comes and picks up our needles, we do just a contract deal with, monthly contract thing
Okay.
with them, you know, it's
We
basically all.
can put the dollars there, but we just can't okay any contractual
Gotcha.
agreements. You'd have to get that okayed through the commissioners.
Sure.
What's the real estate lease?
We have rented a place out on East Morgan Street, 1375 East Morgan. It's in the same building with the WIC office.
Okay,
We're in just a third of that building.
Okay.
And that's where our COVID vaccinations now are being done. And the three people who will be working with this grant will be housed there.
Okay.
We don't have room upstairs for them. We're
Right.
crowded the way it is.
yeah. That's just something else I noticed would be kind of out of our hands as far
Yeah,
as.
the
so you-
commissioners have
lease-
already approved
Okay,
that
okay,
for us.
just wanted to make
Yeah.
sure we've gone through the right procedures.
Dan kind of keeps us straight.
So have these numbers, I didn't hear the commissioners meeting this morning, were these numbers brought before the commissioners too? I mean, are they aware of these numbers?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay.
I mean, I was told that you all would need to approve our budget for it.
Right, we kind of like to keep in touch with what's going on with
Okay.
each other and kind of get the nod of approval.
Come
And so
on,
the-
nod, guys, nod.
I have a question. On the travel, is that just for like gasoline as they travel throughout the county? Is that
That's
what that's for?
correct.
Okay.
Our nurses, we have 2 part-time nurses right now, and they're currently doing some of these things. But they are doing some home visits to give
Right.
the vaccinations there. And of course, we're reimbursing them for their travel. That's
Absolutely.
basically all it's going to be, just travel within the county. No out-of-town travel or anything.
Any other questions?
I'd like to know when it all's going to end.
Yeah, can you get a magic wand?
Yeah, I wish.
I'm just adding them up real quick. Yep, 330. And you've got
This is a
the,
reimbursable grant? Dan, is this a reimbursable grant? Or is this the grant coming straight from the state and then,
Money, right, the money.
No, we do not have the money.
reimbursable grant?
I will have to submit invoices to
okay.
get reimbursed, right?
Okay.
Okay.
And these figures are just guesstimates.
Right.
So it might come in lower.
Yeah.
Vicki Kivett makes a motion that we approve the funding of the 8951 in the amount of $330,000.
Chip Keller will second.
we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you, Jeannie. All right, it looks, let's see. Well, then we've got the salary ordinance amendment. Do I need to bring her back up for that?
You can if you want, I mean, well,
Jeannie, I made you go
Jeannie.
sit back down, but you're up next again on the salary ordinance amendment from the Health Department. Sorry about that.
this is a copy for,
I actually don't think we have to get the part-time RN hourly rate because it's already set in the salary ordinance.
we're just going to specify that it's RN.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then we didn't want to pay an LPN the same salary, so that's why we're wanting you to add in or, to amend the salary ordinance to, for the LPNs as
Yeah.
well.
I think everybody got a copy of the letter there that kind of explains what this is. Amendment to the 2022 salary ordinance to include part-time salaries for the nurses who will be paid through the Fund 8951, which you will be approving at the same meeting. We propose the hourly rates be set at the RN at $28.80 and the part-time LPN at $22 even.
And I went ahead and added the other two health funds where we pay part-time nurses from.
And that's what just came down. Everybody got a copy of that?
So we have all three of the funds covered. So
Is
we
that
don't-
an increase for the other funds?
What's that?
No,
Is that rate an increase, or is that currently what was already in the budget for
It's
our?
currently
that's
already.
currently
Okay.
in there.
So it's not a change?
Not a change.
The
That's all I wanted
change.
to Make sure,
Not
thank
on
you.
the RNs, and then we don't have a set amount
Just
for the
Well, we didn't
LPNs.
have a rate set for LPN.
Right, okay.
RN is no change. It's just,
Okay.
we just didn't specify RN before because we only had RNs,
Right.
so.
Okay.
FICA and all's taken care of outside this account, or
Yeah,
FICA's
the
already
FICA's
addressed,
added
right?
into the budget you
That's in
all
the
just
budget, yeah.
approved,
My
yeah.
question.
Any other questions or discussions? If not, I look for a motion.
Troy Sprinkle, I'll make the motion to approve that.
Jason Maxwell seconds.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you,
Thank
that
you,
was
Jean.
worth my walk back up
That
here.
was. Get those extra steps in. Okay.
And also, it's on that same salary amendment, is the ADAPT coordinator. That rate of pay was not set. There was money appropriated for that position, but there was no salary set for that. So that salary is what was approved.
So we need a motion to
Right.
approve that. So on this paper also, that was set, but it was not in the salary. And so we do need to look for a motion to approve the ADAPT coordinator salary at $57,263.
Jason Maxwell will make that motion.
Thank you, Jason.
Melissa Green will second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0. Okay, and then, there's Dave. Dave Rogers, if you'll come up, we have on our agenda the jail control officer minimum age change, not wage, age.
Wage, not age. We submitted this through the study group, and I think that got a unanimous approval, and also went back to WISC. And what it is back around 2019, we changed and upped the age because we was issuing firearms at that time. We didn't used to issue that prior. So we upped the age to 21. However, my hiring pool has dramatically been decreased by doing that because we are in competition now with every police agency that hires. So we get people for a very short amount of time at 21, and then they move on. So when we hired at 18, we done that for decades until 2019, and we usually had around 200 to 300 applicants, and anymore we've been continually hiring for the past 2 years because we can't keep everything filled. So the sheriff and I have talked about changing that back down to 18. We just would not issue a firearm to those folks that fell in that age category until they turned 21. Josh spoke with insurance carrier. Kelly had a question about that, if there was any liability with that, and there's not. The only thing that it'll be some scheduling, because we'll want to keep those folks off of transports and hospital duties, so they'll primarily be inside the building. So, happy to answer any questions you have, and other than that, just asking to do a final approval.
Have some of the schools started, as I understand it, have started some vocational classes that are
They did,
kinda
and we
leaning
participated
towards-
with that and had good luck with that. And especially some of our long-term correctional officers that we currently have started out at Mooresville and Martinsville. We had partnerships with both of those schools. We've already reached out back to both schools to see if they would be interested. What that gives us is an opportunity to bring in interns while they're going through their programs. And then when they do graduate and turn 18, we pretty much have got free training out of them and
Right.
able to bring them aboard, so.
And I think Ivy Tech has partnered a lot locally with some things going on too, so I don't know if
They
that's
have. We've
some-
been participating. We've changed our whole hiring strategy over the past couple of years. We've partnered up with Indianapolis University, IUPUI, IU, Ivy Tech, and Indiana State University. And, but it just, everyone's wanting to be a cop by the time they turn 21, and,
Exactly.
and we're really struggling with that. We have been able, with the pay matrix, that has helped us recruit some mid-30s from other agencies, but that's still, every agency's trying to match what we've done, so that's kind of made it more difficult again because, but we have, the folks that we've had, and we've got 2 in training right now that came from Monroe and Greene County, but, you know, we've got some, and we'll still be able to recruit from other facilities as well with that pay at 18 and 19-year-olds because it is to a higher end, and they still have a few years before they can even consider being on a road officer position. So.
All right. Anyone have any questions for Dave this evening? Everybody understand what he's asking for?
The weapons issuing, if it's not needed for the job, why were they issued?
Well, it is needed for the job.
If you go off
There's-
campus? is that
Correct.
why it's
So,
needed? Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
So
That-
if
that's
we've
the
got
only thing I
hospital
wasn't
duties,
clear on.
transportation, and we also cover courthouse security as well. So we're just gonna, those folks just wouldn't be eligible to do those specific duties. We don't carry firearms, obviously, within the environment, but there's still
That's
plenty
what
of
I
jobs
kind
to
of figured. I
fill
just
there.
wanted to make
So.
sure that was the reason.
Yep.
Because when I read it, it just didn't. I thought, well, if you need a weapon for the job and you're going to put 18-year-olds that don't have a weapon in that job, that seems.
Correct. Yeah, they'll be in positions in which wouldn't require. I mean, they'll still have, because we still carry tasers and OC, and they can still carry those items, but they would just not be participating in transportation.
I'm
All right.
assuming we need a motion for this?
Yes.
I'll make a motion that we approve the age change from 21 down to 18 for the jail control officer.
And I want to correct that. For some reason, it keeps getting control officer on everything.
Oh.
That's correctional officer.
Corrections officer,
Yes,
okay,
yes,
jail
yes.
corrections officer, I'll amend my.
Want to clarify
motion.
that.
Yep.
Troy Sprinkle, second that motion.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Troy. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, council.
Get these readers back on. EMS proposed PTO and wage change. Keenan?
Good afternoon. I'm going to tell you all the same thing I told the commissioners this morning. If I pass out, it's from asphyxiation. Just unbutton this top one here. It's gotten a little tight since COVID, so I'm a little lightheaded, to be honest with you. So first and foremost, thank you for your time tonight. I'll just go ahead and address the elephant in the room. I know that it's not a budget time issue. However, I had 2 promises to my troops when I came in. That was pay and stations. So I'm up here to deliver on one promise. That being said, this, in my opinion, is not a issue to be sat on and wait because it's only growing worse by the day. Mr. Rogers just touched on his issues. They're very well aware, or very alive in our realm as well. So the more that we wait on this, the more we're digging ourselves in a hole with PTO, and we're losing money, we're losing recruits, we're hurting, So I would also like to publicly state that since taking over as Director of Morgan County EMS, every elected official has come to me and expressed their concerns in regards to the budget. One of the things that I would like to say is that myself and my deputy director are working diligently on conserving this budget and running it as fiscally responsible as possible. That being said, if I have an issue with you or a problem, I'll come to a solution for you as well. So that's what I present with you today. Let's go back to the budget. One of the reasons that the budget does keep increasing is operating expenditure. Our run volumes are going up every single year. This 2021, we had a record number of 5,212 runs. This year, we also, in 2021, we also had a record revenue generated of $1.4 million. So yes, our $4.2 million budget does look big, but we also turned around and brought $1.4 million in. From 2020 to 2021, there was only about 300 run volume increase. For our generated revenue for 2020, it was 1.1 million. So yes, our budget does grow, but in return, we're also bringing money in on the back end as well. So I just want to let you guys know that this revenue, this said revenue, it tremendously helps by offsetting the need that's needed in order to operate a high-functioning Rural 911 EMS agency, which I can promise you, look all of you square in the eye and tell you that's exactly what you have. I've worked for many agencies. I've worked for flight agencies. We have top-notch employees down here. With that being said, shortly after becoming Morgan County EMS director, I realized very quickly we were hemorrhaging funds left and right via PTO. I ran a study for 2021. We had 9,666.5 hours of PTO taken. Folks, that equated to 402 24-hour shifts that needed coverage via overtime and or PRN. One of the things that I'm scared to death to do is fail at anyone. So what I did is when I worked these numbers out, I was very, very conservative. I was trying to be as median as possible. So what I did for those 9,666.5 hours is I worked all our pay structures out, our full-time on the EMT side or full-time on the paramedic side, and then our 2 PRN line items out. I worked out an average of $16 an hour. I multiplied that by 9,666.5, and we were pushing a total of $155,664 out in monies just to cover those shifts. We already run at bare minimum staffing. What does that mean? That means if we have one call off, we have a truck down. We're already at bare minimum staffing. So anytime we go down one individual, whether it be a paramedic or an EMT, that truck is out of service until we find somebody to step in place. So moving on. Effective January 1, I went ahead and did my due diligence. I wrote a very strict PTO SOG up. And in fact, we're already seeing the fruits of that labor. So as of now, we're averaging about $6,000 per pay cycle, a decrease. So that doesn't seem like a whole lot until you multiply that by 26 pay cycles, which is now $156,000, which brings me to where I'm at with you today. I have to look at you guys and get help from this point. Moving on to the WIS study. The WIS study, and I verified this with HR. I verified this with HR, and I verified it with a WIS representative. It is outdated, and it also does not take the COVID, the mass supply demand issue with paramedics and EMTs in consideration. It does not. She acknowledged that, and what we find ourselves is a recruitment and a retention problem. I have recruited every individual that I can, any counties from the south, east, and west. If I ever leave here, I promise you I'm not going to get a job in any of those counties because they don't like me. That's just all there is to it. So what I did is I went ahead and performed my own pay study. What I found is the numbers that I proposed there is right in the middle. We don't need to be at the top. We definitely don't need to be at the bottom. We are right in the middle with the number that I gave you because we have 3 things that a lot of agencies don't have, and that's the protocols, that's the medical direction, and opportunity and growth. Many, many EMS agencies, once you get there, you become a paramedic, you stay a paramedic until you retire. We now have 3 EDOs, thanks to you guys. We now have 3 EDOs, a deputy director, and a director. We want to build a culture from within that allows folks to come in, invest, buy into the culture, and grow and move up with it. So we have those things that many of these other agencies don't. So how would we get there? I propose that we cut PTO down quite a bit. We cut it down, and then we also implement 240 hours comp time. Comp time is one thing that the other agencies that I pulled into this study does not have. It's a win-win for the taxpayer, it's a win-win for operational needs. Due to, if someone burns out their 9, now it's on your sheet, but let's talk about that 1-year employee. They get 9 24-hour shifts, whereas before they were getting 14. So they want to burn through their PTO and they want more time off. Now they have to pick up an overtime shift. When they pick up that overtime shift, they now bank it as comp time. We're not paying out overtime wages. That is a win-win. So then what we do is we start to flip the paradigm and encourage and push more comp time over PTO. So it's a win-win, and at the end of the year, when they go to Xville, it's all paid out, it's already time worked. So moving on, I kind of get a little off topic. I almost have this memorized to a point where, so finally, we have folks hanging on to see what happens. This is just the cold, honest truth. This is not me doing a scare tactic. This is me being completely upfront and honest with you. We truly have we have 3 folks right now that's waiting to see what happens. Outside of that, we're a donut county. All they have to do is drive an additional 10, 15, 20 minutes, and they're making $10,000, $12,000 more. In fact, we've signed into an agreement with Bargersville at the north end of the county, and we're working with them, and they're well ahead of us. So the only thing that's keeping these folks here is the 3 things that I had mentioned, but still, the economy is going in a bad way. It's not gonna get any better, in my opinion, and we have to get ahead of that power curve. I have had a position open for 5 months. I have interviewed 5 individuals. I still have a position open. At the end of the day, I'm involved in every single interview. If I can't look at that candidate and say, I trust you to work on my family or myself, then they're not good enough to work on yours or your friends or your family. So that's where I'm at. We cannot ask these folks to drive. Most of the paramedics live up north. We cannot ask them to drive past higher paying agencies to come work for less. And if they are doing that, I guarantee there's a reason for it. That's kind of where we're at right now. So another 2 things, I didn't bring this up this morning, but I got to thinking about it, and Josh and I talked about it as well. IU Lifeline has already approached me. IU Lifeline knows that we're still doing pretty well, way better than them when it comes to staffing. They already want to sign a contract with us right now to take over transports, IFTs. That is solid money. You know a reason why you had the private companies before and they were never in service is because they were taking those runs because it offers more money. We have that ability, but I cannot run and take additional operations with a lack of applications on my desk. Another thing that we're looking at is integrating mobile integrated health community paramedicine. It's the future of paramedicine. It is being proactive. It is going to your houses and doing a spot check with you, taking your vitals, talking, making sure that you're taking medications, because what the insurance companies are finding out, it's a whole lot easier to pay us as a paramedic to come in and do that than it is to have us transport 911, get a 911 bill on top of hospital stay, and then a discharge. So these are all big things that we're looking at, but to be honest with you, my hands are tied. I just can't take these additional responsibilities on at this point in time. So I'm gonna say this because I'm married and I can. I'm told no all the time because I am married, but this is one of those times, guys, that I really need a yes. It really is. We are functioning at a very high level with what we've got. We've got individuals that's hanging on because they believe in what we've got going on with Morgan County MS. We need to take care of them. We need to retain them. Bargersville's hiring, White River, Avon, Decatur, I mean, you name it, they're all hiring. There is a national shortage of paramedics and EMTs, and let me promise you, not every paramedic and EMT out there is worth their salt. Down here, you have to be worth your salt because people will die, and we have seen it, and that's why I'm picky. And I will not lower my standards just to get people in the door, because that will go against every moral code that I have in my bone and body in regards to paramedicine. So I don't want to be stuck between that hard place and a rock, but it's coming. And what I would like to do is get ahead of the power curve. So how would I like to get there? I'd like to get there by decreasing the amount of PTO, continue rolling on with our PTO SOG, and basically what I'm doing is I'm taking those inherent funds that are saved and I'm sliding them right over into salaries. At this point in time, I want $0. I don't want any additional appropriations. I want to be able to run this budget to the fullest extent with myself and my deputy director. And if push comes to shove, and I will do my best, and so will he, if push comes to shove, and I do need additional appropriations for whatever reason, we now have data to roll off of, and it's projected data, so we're not going at this blindly. And then I've already done a little bit of homework. Again, this is your guys' realm, it's your choice, but the ARPA funds, in fact, does help cover on wages because they understand what COVID has done to the healthcare industry. We have never been so taxed and overworked in the history of healthcare. We have the least amount of paramedics in this nation today than ever before. It is crazy. People are burnt out, and they're moving on to other careers and jobs. So, does anybody have any questions? I know I just got even more lightheaded with all that talk.
I do have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So, with the reduction of PTO hours, is that something that's gone through HR and legal to make sure that that's allowed? We're going to be having two different classes of employees having different types of hours.
So what I did, when I pulled the pay studies, I actually went and pulled from everybody else to make sure, because the last thing that I wanted to do was, okay, let's get the pay up there and then short them on the PTO.
Yeah, I'm not saying that. I'm
Yeah.
saying, can we have employees in two different departments and say, okay, these employees can only have this many PTO hours, but these employees have a different set of PTO? That's what I want to know.
So do you want to?
So what, one of the things that Keenan did was he looked at hours worked for the week. I mean, it's hard to compare a 24-hour
Right.
shift with an 8-hour shift or
Right.
a 7-hour shift. So that was one of the things that he looked at. What we did when we switched handbooks was we added some time, minimal time to everybody. The problem was with the 24-hour shift, they were already getting those 24-hour shifts, but it was earmarked personal, sick, and vacation. And now it's all one big bucket in PTO. So they don't have to hand a doctor's note if they call in one day. However, that one day is like 3 shifts, 3 days for me.
Right.
You know, so it's just a little bit different. We already have 5 different classes, if you want to call it that, classifications maybe for PTO time in our handbook. So we have a 7, a 7.5, an 8, a 12, and a 24. So this department is the only one that works the 24-hour shift. And so that would just change what they're allowed.
So let me.
So percentage-wise, right, correct? Percentage-wise,
So to build on that, so under the current policy, if you have a 20-year, 40-hour work week employee versus a 20-year, 24/48, which is us, that 40-hour work week employee gets 7.6 weeks total off. My 24/48, they're getting 4.6 months off a year. So is that fair?
No,
Yeah.
I'm not saying
Yeah.
that. And I'm saying, is this going to correlate to the same amount of weeks off for that regular 40-hour-a-week person? Is it going to be the same correlation of the amount of weeks that someone's available to take off?
Yeah, so let's see here. If you look at the proposed system, it's at 456 hours, which is 19 shifts, which is 2 months, which is right at your 7.6 weeks.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, I didn't misunderstood you the first time.
That's fine.
Say that again, 456.
Yes, ma'am. So it's 456 hours, which is equivalent to 19 24-hour shifts, which is just shy of 2 straight months. The 40-hour work week employee is at 7.6 weeks off. So right there, again, at 8 weeks. That's as close as I could get it without making it look.
You could have been an accountant with all these spreadsheets and numbers.
I'm quickly learning.
I do have another question.
Can I make
Well, go ahead, Don.
24
I want to make a
hours
brief
shifts, yeah,
comment.
equals 2 months.
You'll have, I'll go ahead and leave this on because I'm supposed to. I heard this presentation this morning, and there's only one bad thing I heard from what he said to start with was if I ever leave. And that was not something I ever want to hear. Because I guess a long time ago, about 14 years ago, the first person I met when I served in this capacity was Marty Weaver, Colonel Marty Weaver. And I found out one thing from the military is that, and I didn't serve there, I lucked out and drew a big number. This gentleman and Marty Weaver know how to identify a plan or identify a problem They know how to make a plan, they know how to execute a plan, and they know how to evaluate a plan. And I've never seen any place that they train that any better than the military. And I'm so proud that we have this gentleman to work with. So I appreciate all your considerations, and I certainly appreciate the work that he's putting into this program. And I speak for the other commissioners as well. He's certainly a blessing to the county.
And
Thank you.
it's our understanding the commissioners passed this proposal this morning 3-0.
Yeah, absolutely. If we'd have had 6 more, we'd have done the same thing. Oh, yes.
With the caveat. Here's
So,
the caveat.
The caveat to that is, the commissioners approved both ordinances before them on the condition that you all approve them and approve the change in salary. They won't do one without the other, so their approval was contingent upon that. And Don can speak for that, if he would like to, but they aren't interested in piecemeal, and they think this needs to be done as a whole package. It's either all or nothing.
That would absolutely kill our agency.
We understand
That's all
that.
there is to it.
I want to add a couple things, just from an outsider's perspective. I think Keenan just did a nice job summarizing this. But you've got 2 spreadsheets in front of you and a graph, and there's a couple major takeaways. One, ground has shifted in this EMS world. We're not immune to it. Lots of others have shifted how quickly they move up in their pay structure. We're trying to adapt to catch up. I firmly believe, had Keenan been director last May, we would have probably dealt with this then, but we didn't, and so we're here today. Second, he identified, as he broke down these numbers, every time we turn over somebody, we're burning $6,000 out the door. We spent $90,000 last year in paying out PTO. When you add those numbers on top of the savings for full-time employees of reducing our PTO hours, we aren't going to say definitively that we're going to equate to the amount of money we're asking you to increase the salaries, but we think we are. And that's why we don't want an additional appropriation now. And the last thing I'll say is we are doing as well as we are because people follow Keenan. When there was talk from him that he may leave when Donnie stepped aside and go back to Lifeline, we had medical direction tell us, hey, if he goes, I'm done with you all. We had employees saying, I'm leaving, I'll see you later. People follow him, and this is an opportunity that we can stand behind him and let him lead the way the commissioners tasked him with. Thanks.
So I have a couple of questions. When you said that you were changing your SOGs, this is something that you've just been working on, right? What?
No, ma'am. The SOG, I already had it drafted and approved, and that went live January 1 because I wanted to start the new year off on that to see what those numbers looked like. I was forecasting.
So did I hear him right? He said last year our payout in PTO was $90,000?
It actually was way. So I didn't even add all that in there. Again, one of my biggest fears is over-promising and under-delivering. So that number is actually drastically higher than that. I went super conservative on that. We actually ended up having 3 paramedics go to a higher paying agency and 3 EMTs go to.
That was my next question.
Yes,
How
and
many people have we lost in the last year or two?
Yeah, well, then there was
6.
attrition too because there was a culture change and.
Right.
And yes, so, and I'll take onus on that, but we're where we need to be at this point.
I do have another question.
Yes,
Since you mentioned that if you have a paramedic that calls off, that truck is just down. Obviously, you know that when this service was started, we did not initially have those EDO officers, and we were told that those EDO officers would provide additional paramedics
And they
in that case. So I just want to make it clear to public and people that are speaking that if that does happen, you do have an EDO officer that could
Oh, yes,
temporarily
ma'am.
stand in and take that truck, so we're not having a truck out of
Yes,
service
ma'am.
long.
Yes, we
Okay.
very, very rarely will shut a truck down, very rarely. If you look at all the other agencies around us, they're calling on us. BHOS wants us down at the county line. I've had it out with them. It's not Monroe County folks that are paying the taxes, it's Morgan County citizens. I don't mind helping out, but you will not use us as a crutch. So that's died off. Brown Township, Madison, all of it, you name it, we're there backing them up.
My ears perked up when you mentioned additional revenue through maybe contracting with these outside hospitals, groups, whatever, that need transport services. Is that a for sure thing you're thinking of doing if you can get your staffing back to where you need it?
It absolutely
And
is.
approximately how much revenue are you
So I
talking
have
about?
not got that far, to be honest with you, Chip. I do know that when you start down that realm, there's a thing called medical necessity. So a doctor signs that. Well, now CMS can't come back and fight that and renegotiate. It's a set number. However, it's pretty much mine if I want it, but I've been pumping the brakes on it. The vice president of Lifeline, Corey Hall, him and I actually went to high school together. He said that if you want it, I'll get the contract over you, you sign it, and we'll make you first call, which means that he's not calling anybody else. He'll give Morgan County EMS the first shot at taking that run. If we cannot, then he'll move on to second and third call. That is a very real thing.
And I want to make clear that not that I'm not necessarily strictly opposed to private transport, but you have to understand, when you do a private transport, you're taking one of those trucks out of service, and it may not be available for an emergency transport, emergency heart attack, an emergency that
So-
might be happening.
So, ma'am, I would never do that.
Yeah,
That would
that's what
be
makes
in
me, it would need to
yes.
be added, because I think that we already see that maybe the amount of trucks we have now is not really enough to carry or cover the entire county as it is right now.
So that's where I've already started to forecast on some of that. That's where we would keep 991 as a
Okay.
BLS truck. And that BLS truck, if it's not in fact on a transfer run and there's a BLS run that comes out, they would jump on that. But we would not take away from our current fleet.
Yeah,
I would be
wouldn't wanna do that.
vehemently against that, and that would be the driving force of not doing it if that were the case.
Thank you.
911 is what we get paid for.
Oh, go ahead. No.
I just, one more comment, and then I'll stop. But I appreciate you staying upfront, how you're conscious of the budget and trying to run it as efficiently as possible. And I believe you when you say you are. Because in my 1 year of being on the council, the only phone calls I've gotten is about the cost of the EMS and how the budget's grown. And we all want top-notch, professional, Class A service when it comes to those emergency services. But people also are wary of, how much taxes they're paying. So I appreciate you just talking about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and I may be wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think at the beginning of the year, folks see a published budgetary, but at the end of the year, they don't see said generated revenue. So all they see is money's continuing to rise, but we also have generated revenue that offset that as well. It's operating expenditure is all it is at that point.
And I know that people think it's a waste of money until they need your services,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yes,
But
ma'am.
a couple questions. So how many people do you have on at a time on a shift? Like, how many ambulances are there that can go out? 2?
6 ALS trucks.
6?
Yep. 12, 6 paramedics, 6 EMTs, and an EDO. And then myself and the deputy director, we will jump on runs as well if it's high acuity.
And then you allow how many people to be off at a time? Is it 2?
2, yes, ma'am.
And then if you have more than 2, so the problem is that people are using PTO when there's already 2 people off, and it's creating the overtime?
Well, prior to, there wasn't even a PTO SOG. It was still under sick time. So morally, I had a hard time holding people accountable to something that we didn't even have in writing. That's got a lawsuit material written all over it. So as soon as I was in the position to go ahead and rectify that, that's what I did. What I did in the PTO SOG is if there's 2 people off and you have a call-in, you now fall under a sick policy. So now that's when you run into. The ideal thing would be to have PTO, and I'm sure there might be some other agencies that get on this, but I think the ideal thing would be to have PTO, max your PTO out at a certain number. Anything that goes over that number at the end of the year that's not used falls in a sick bank. That way you are for sure covered under a sick policy, and there's no gray area.
So I think I saw, is there somewhere that there is someone who's already banked up like 900 hours?
Oh, my average PTO is anywhere from 2 to 500.
So if they leave, do we pay them out?
You only pay out a max of 240 hours, whatever equates to 1 month's worth of work.
And
So
then
that
they
would
would
be
just lose, they would forfeit the other if they
Correct.
were to leave?
correct.
Did you have
Or they
input
use it
into the
before they
budget
leave.
process in the
know they're
fall
leaving,
when
they use
the
it.
budget was being set for the department?
Very little, because I was running operations. So that was basically the only thing that I didn't do a whole lot of. However, however, I have gone fine tooth comb through that budget. So I have already found ways to save and extend this budget in several different areas, just by tweaking a few things.
I know Kelly and I sat down with you to go through the budget, and this really wasn't brought to the forefront at that time. So I'm kind of curious as to, no pun intended, but why are we on fire now for a problem like this when it wasn't in August? I mean, what has
So-
changed? Has COVID changed it that much?
It continues to worsen, yes. And the other part is, that was not my lane to be in.
It
And
wasn't privy.
You were
Yeah.
the director.
Okay,
Yeah.
and that makes sense.
so
mean,
I didn't
I'm
want to
just-
cross,
was
I
just
don't want to
curious.
step on toes and be respectful.
That's what we needed to hear.
So how many tiers, currently we have 3 tiers.
Yes, sir.
How many tiers are you proposing?
So currently, this is what we have. On the paramedic side, it's 1 to 5 years experience is tier 1, 6 through 10 is tier 2, anything above 10 is tier 3. On the EMT side, we have tier 1, 1 through 7, tier 2, 8 through 13, and tier 3, anything over 13. So if I have a 1 year, an EMT with 1 year's worth of experience, it will take them 12 years to max out. That is a very outdated system. No one does it anymore. So what we are proposing, when I did the pay study, there was anywhere from 1 to 2 years to 5 years. The middle ground was that 3-year mark. So what I'm proposing is 1, 2, 3 years, and on the paramedic side, and on the EMT side, 1 through 5 years. The reason being on the 1 through 5 years on the EMT side is typically if an EMT is not a paramedic by that year 5, they're going to be a career EMT. That doesn't make them any less of a provider, any less, they are just as important as the paramedic is out on the streets, because if they can't do the job effectively, the paramedic cannot do the job effectively. So when you're a 5-year EMT, I think that they don't need to work 2 and 3 jobs to make ends meet.
But, okay, so are you proposing a tier break at every 3 years?
No, sir. So at year 1, you'll come in,
Okay,
and then 2nd year, you'll move, and then the 3rd year, you're topped out if you're on the paramedic side. 0 to 1.
So after 3 years, then that's you're topped out, whereas
Yes.
now you're topped out at 10.
Yes.
So
Yes.
you're saying that you're looking at the same rates of pay, but getting there sooner?
Higher rates as well.
Yeah, the pay rates
And
is,
higher rates as well.
yes.
And higher rates as well?
Because, prime example, Avon, I have this memorized. Avon, first year, they start you at 60, 2nd year, and there's no 3rd or 4th year after that. You jump all the way up to over 66. Wayne Township is a 1, 2, 3 plan. Decatur Township is a 1, 2, 3 year plan. Bargersville is a 1, 2, 3. Brownsburg is a 1 through 5. Everyone is doing that. The waiting 10, 12 years to get a pay raise and max out is, and what they have found is that's where you get your retention. You getting those folks there, you keep them there. If you look at my pay structure, it actually starts off very low, and it starts off very close to where we are now. That is, you've got 1 year to prove to us that you're worth your salt, and then at that point in time, if you've made it through 1 year with us, now we'll start paying you and getting you to where you need to be, but we think that you need to prove it.
And then after that, you would be considering like normal cost of living increases?
Yes, sir.
That's what I was
Yes.
going to ask. So
And
what's
then
the
at that-
incentive to stay after 3 years?
Say again?
The incentive to stay after more than 3
So,
years?
going back to those 3 points, again, there's only one station, one department that offers full-time EMS EDOs. That's Wayne right now. Avon is getting ready to implement it. Outside of that, we're the other one. So the ability to move up into management and then move on from there, that's the incentive.
Just to clarify, an EDO is like a shift captain?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
You got to keep in mind, Wayne Township and Avon, they've got a considerable tax base.
You are
I
correct.
mean, we can't compete with that.
Yep, so in fact, if you look at the Wayne Township number, that's fudged way low, because their EMS duty officer, the EDOs, they're all the way in the mid-80s. Obviously, that number doesn't reflect that. So that's why, if you look at the graph, it's right in the middle. I'm telling you, that's the magic number in today's market, in today's world.
I want to commend you for bringing up that ARPA funds are eligible. This is an expense. Obviously, ARPA could be used for something like this. You know, everyone knows that COVID has greatly impacted healthcare, and obviously, this is something that it could be used for. However, I do want to reiterate that that's a small-term thing that could be used up until through the year 2024, but not after that. So if we were to make a change, yes, we could float the increased cost out of ARPA, which is something that I would not necessarily be opposed to, but we need to be understanding by year 2025, we would need to be able to fund this ourselves.
So my big goal, to be honest with y'all, my big goal is to, if we get this passed, I'll start working diligently, continue working diligently on the mobile integrated health stuff. There's a lot of insurance companies out there. Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield is actually going out and standing these programs up because they know that's where they're saving money and it's a generated revenue, as well as the transport. I'm going to try to turn this agency into more self-sustaining and move that direction.
Is there an amount that you can get per person with that ARPA fund? Like, is that just something you request, or how does that play into it?
The Treasury is allowing, you know, up to $10 million of our funds to be used for any governmental purpose. So we literally could just pay salaries for
Really?
out of this if we need to. Now, that may not be what the commissioners choose to do. They get to still draw up that plan. So I do want to say that that's not necessarily our 100% decision.
So 10 million for our county?
We receive 13 million in total, but up to 10 million can be used.
For salary?
Right. Well, for any
Wages.
governmental purpose.
Oh, any
governmental purpose.
Okay.
Additional funds, this would be COVID-related specifically, so you could use that in between the 10 and the 13 as well. But
2025?
we can only use it through 2024, has to be expended.
So tonight, you're looking for the approval to amend the salary ordinance,
Yes,
correct?
ma'am. And then let myself and my deputy director work this budget to the fullest extent, in which we will, and we will show you, and then we will go from there and see. I think a lot of our savings on the PTO, it's not gonna come immediately, but where we'll start to see it is that 12 to 18-month mark. Because if you look at the numbers, it's $174,000 saved just in the employees that we have at the year that they're at with the amount of PTO. That stuff is gonna add up, but it's not gonna be right here in front of us right now. It will be through 12, 18 months, I forecast. And if we continue to wait on this, we're gonna have people keep 4, 5, 6, 7, 800 hours every year up until we choose to move on it.
But we really don't have a total of what this is going to.
Do you have hourly rates that you want for each of the 3 tiers?
Yeah, so actually, do you have it, Josh?
I'm curious what amount of money you're asking for.
We have to convert it to hourly.
I'm not asking for anything right now.
They're-
What I would
they're
like to do is run the budget and continue, like I said, I can throw a few numbers out to you. I've already looked and found $26,000 into our physical,
approve it, yeah.
because our county insurance, we get free physicals, and it's preventative maintenance. So these folks were turning around and paying a couple hundred up to $1,000 for a physical. Why? Because you can go to your doctor and have the same thing. So there's 26,000. For example, GTAC. We find that the warranty on these computers run out at 36 months. And guess what? They start breaking around 40, 46 months. So instead of buying these outright, I'm going to lease them. And now I'm saying there's there's $20,000 saved right there. So we're doing our best to be as fiscally responsible as we can. And that's why I say that I don't even want a single dollar right now. Let us run this and see where we can take it. And if it comes down to it, I can promise you all that the last thing I'll jeopardize is operations. That's not me. That's not who I am. So if it comes down to a point, I will be the first one to let you all know.
With your projections on how you want to change the pay scale, And then you said we might not see the fruit of this for 12 or 18 months, or I think that's what you said. Is there a point that it crosses, like, can you forecast or project out to where you think, you know what I mean? Where you might be coming to us for money, or do you think you can get through the year without doing that?
That is my ultimate goal, is to get through the year. That is my ultimate goal. Again, though, we have some folk, very little folks that will just earn and burn that PTO. Most of them, though, they honestly don't, because at the end of it, when you take PTO, you also lose money as well. So it's very hit and miss across the board. And the other thing that's going to play into that is if they start using comp time more over PTO. If they start using comp time, we'll see an even bigger and faster savings. That's a very difficult question.
I know.
Long story short.
But you're a number cruncher.
I'm learning.
Dan brought up a good point about the numbers you've given us are kind of whole numbers, but we need those broken down into hourly numbers.
So that was in our packet. I apologize. I had 3 pages of these numbers. So I do, in fact, have those broken down for you.
And can you go over your stipend changes since you haven't spoken about that?
Yeah, so stipend change, the one thing there is and I'm not complaining, so please don't take it like that. We don't have any administrative staff whatsoever. It's myself, my deputy director, and our EDOs. So what we have is we have some select individuals that have chosen to step up and do additional tasks. And I think that it would be, I think that it's a responsibility to say, hey, thank you, because they could be in there working on small little projects while everybody else is taking a nap, getting ready for a long night of being awake. So that's just a way of saying thank you for taking on these tasks. One of the other big things, the station EMTs, the system that you guys approved, the ESO management, asset management and whatnot, that works, but it also requires human input. So what we need is someone who's willing out at these stations to take that task on and make it their baby so we can maintain as accurate as possible and run those numbers so that we do see the fruit of it.
Actually, Keena doesn't agree with me on this one, but actually for a department that size and the type of paperwork involved and with my office right now is tracking the revenue coming in from insurance and Medicare and Medicaid and all those folks, but it's really shouldn't be our job. We don't do that for any other department. They handle that and they turn the money over to us. They actually need, everybody that's employed at our EMS is dedicated to serving as an EMS employee. And they have no administrative, actually, I think he needs an administrative person, personally, but.
Other than our director and deputy director are administrative. They are considered administrative positions.
Yeah, we're administrative. Yeah, we're administration.
Yeah. But I understand what you're saying. I'm not saying that, but yeah.
Does every other department have an administrative person?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Sheriff's Department? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So Dan, what you're saying is the auditor's office is doing the insurance tracking and all for her product?
Have ever since the beginning.
So that may be something you want to look at for budget time to add a position there that can take on those duties.
We can look at that, yes, ma'am.
We took a lot of those duties away, though. We just gave a new position to the auditor. So would that position need to be moved, shifted? I'm just saying, we gave him because he had so much work, if all that work.
Don't put me in the middle of that.
Just pointing out that we have.
Coming out of his ears.
We love our auditor, and we only have 11 more months, so let's be nice.
Right now. Okay, now you've got here fourth-year EMT with a difference in pay. I thought you were maxing out at 3 years.
So, no, I
It's
said
EMT
it's 3 years
versus
for medics, it's 5 for EMT, because
Okay.
being in
okay.
this industry long enough, if an EMT is still an EMT at 5 years, they don't plan on going to paramedic school. So what I didn't want to do is have folks max out at, say, year 3, and then we send them to paramedic school because we have an MOU signed with Ivy Tech, in which we can send folks to EMT or paramedic school for free. So then I didn't want to have to pay that rate for them to go to school and then pay the overtime to backfill it. So that's why I bought that buffer zone there.
And plus, that's the goal, is for your EMTs to go to paramedic school and you retain them.
That is the goal if they choose to do so, yes, ma'am.
So where? I do not see any proposed.
It's kind of where I was at. I don't see a final number. I mean, I see a
Well,
request, but
I don't see,
What do you want to
well, I
walk
got
out
the
of here with
EMTs
tonight?
here.
Ma'am, I'm not asking for any additional appropriations. I'm asking the salary and the,
Changes to the salary ordinance.
yeah,
But at some point, he's going to need money to cover that.
Possibly, you'll have to wait till probably
Possibly.
the third or fourth quarter and make that determination.
which
We
at
won't know
that point
right
in time, if that's the case, we'll have several payrolls underneath us, so we can look at that data to project exactly what is needed. It's not shooting blind in the dark like we would be right now. That's why I don't want to,
So you just kind of want our blessing and a signed salary ordinance tonight if we're in favor of this, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I'll be honest, I walked in here tonight thinking no. I think it's a budget time issue, and I don't like to deviate from that. I don't want us to be in the second month of the year and overhauling a department and their payroll. However, COVID has changed our world. And Kelly brought up a good point when you brought up the ARPA money, that it's there. It could be the bridge to get us to where you clean this up, and then we can sustain that. So, that being said,
I would want to hear that our commissioners are on board with us using the funds that way, because we don't get to dictate that use of those funds, so they need to. So I would want to hear from them if they would be okay with that if we come up short.
well, we have all three of them here.
Firing squad.
Here you go.
I don't see anyone jumping up.
Either. You're all happy to sign off on it this
Come on,
morning.
speak up, Kenny. You're the president. What do you think?
What do you think, Don? Did you?
ARPA money?
I mean, we don't know yet. We'll know third and fourth quarter for sure.
yeah, that's my thought
What
too.
it's going to look like.
Exactly.
I am also in agreement with Kim. I am a stickler for the rules, because I do not need every department coming to us at every meeting and asking for changes. I don't.
Understood.
Okay? So I would preface that to all other departments that are listening to this meeting. Do not come next month for changes. I'm saying that. But we need to don't, Tony, be quiet. But I will say that I'm a big supporter of public safety, and keeping our taxpayers safe is highly important. So while I don't like doing this mid-year,
We're not even mid-year.
we're not mid-year. One thing, we're not even close to mid-year. I will say that I'm not in favor of stipend changes. Unfortunately, if we're going to be doing pay raises in these substantial pay raises, and I do think they are substantial. I'm not saying they're not warranted, but they are substantial. I'm not in favor of stipend changes. That's just my personal opinion.
And that's okay. That's okay.
Yep.
I would kind of lean that way too.
Yep.
I know you guys are busy at times, but there's also a lot of downtime that I think.
I go back to before we started, we didn't have EDO officers, and we do. And if
We
the
do.
EDO officers need to be assigned some of those duties, then they need to be assigned
So
some
if
of
there
those
needs
duties.
to be some adjustment to job descriptions to what those include and.
But
We can do that.
COVID has changed a lot of things, and paramedics are in high demand. I know all too well. But if we can get the commissioners on board, I'm okay because we'll be okay for this year. We will stay within budget this year because we can use those ARPA funds. And we can use it for next year too, if we need to.
And they could fund it 100% the ARPA funds?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. The difference
At
between
least
what
the
we
difference.
budgeted, the difference between what we budgeted. So we are not going to go
Oh,
outside
we got
of,
one coming.
out of our budget.
I really want to hear,
Is that Eric Church?
Oh, no, what's he
Is that
brought?
Eric Church?
But he's thinking we might be able, he's not gonna promise because he doesn't want to let anybody
Sure.
down. But he's
And
hoping
if we
that
do,
he has
great.
the funds within
Right.
the budget that you already approved, and that
And
he won't need those.
then
And
we're-
you bring up the ARPA, you guys need three? Yeah, I don't know if you've discussed that, but we discussed it this morning. We're bringing four, you need three. We need to get that committee. I'd like to tell you yes, and I think the commissioners will tell you yes, and we apparently through all the verbiage get the final say, but we're forming this committee, a joint committee, so,
Okay.
of 7 people, so we need to get working with that. And I also wanted to come up here because I could feel the tide switching to his favor, and I wanted to sit next to Keenan and say, I sold this for you, bud.
I thought you were gonna give me a hat.
You?
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
all right, let's vote.
That's pretty good
was
timing.
really helping you.
That's pretty good timing.
He's getting photos.
I would like to say, last week,
Could have been better.
during all the snow, that this gentleman was with his employees like the whole time, right? Not getting paid anything extra?
All
Okay.
joking aside, though, Keenan, you've worked hard on this.
Yes.
I mean, you've really gathered the numbers and the data and the sheets, and sometimes you can just overwhelm me a little bit with
Oh,
all
I'm
of it.
overwhelmed already.
That's a lot of little letters.
I'm just ready for it to be done.
Let me reiterate some too, because I've talked to Kim and Kelly, and Keenan and I have talked 2 or 3 times about this, and I'm a numbers guy. And this is impressive. Doing your job, being with your folks, and putting this together, impressed. I applaud you.
Yep.
I also applaud you for this. You can teach management skills. You can't teach leadership skills. Your folks in the back of this room are here because they believe in you. When we came in tonight, and I'll agree with these guys, this was not going to, because we want to make sure that the precedent is set. But wow, amazing job.
Good job.
And we're in the
Absolutely.
business of
Thank you,
making
sir.
this county better, and that's what you're trying to do with this agency, and it's apparent.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good
You're
job.
a leader, and we want you here.
Thank you, sir.
Good point. Thank you, Troy.
Well, you know, we had our discussions, and I told you I didn't like things first of the year, that things should be at budget time, but you turned me around tonight.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, I think you were told the girls will say no.
I may or may not have heard that.
Rule.
Are the commissioners on board with the
ARPA.
I think we've,
I don't want to tie that committee's hands, but I'm in total agreement on it. ARPA funds does have to be spent by the end of 2025.
thought it was 24.
They all got to be gone by 2026.
So we have to have a.
I think it has to be spent by the end of 2024, and then they give you 2 years to commit to them if you have a contract in place for 25 and 26. And I only say
Still
that
plenty of
'cause-
time to
Yeah,
know
we
where
have
we're
plenty of
at.
time.
Yeah, we know where we'll be at. Okay. Dan's working on some numbers here, I think, aren't you? Before we make any decisions
I
on
have
anything.
numbers for you. Are you going to want an ordinance?
Yeah. So I guess I need to know how the motion should read.
Yeah, because those would be pledged. That'd be different than operational. These kind of funds would be operational, so you can't pledge operational cost of salaries and those kinds of things. So those only could be spent through '24.
Okay.
You want to introduce your people?
Logan Enlow, she's in the very back. She's one of our full-time EMTs. You've been here since the inception of it, correct? Yep. So she's gonna be one of those fifth-year EMTs.
Okay.
There's also a reason because of that, the timing. I wanted to say thank you to those folks that's been here since day one. She's one of the reasons I pushed that. Chris McFarland, he's our A-shift EDO.
Okay.
Cherry pick from BHOS, remember the one agency that I told you I'd never work at? Then my deputy director, Ben Purdy, he's a former flight medic, still a flight medic, flown for air evac, staff flight, one of the smartest paramedics I know, so.
Great.
And then,
Oh, you got one
Rich
over there?
Myers back
Rich
there
Myers?
in the corner.
Unless they need shot.
Appreciate the team you put together and you're building on it. And yes, thank you for your service. Hope we don't need you, but Jeffs, go ahead.
Also, but here's the, and then here, they'll need to sign.
Okay.
So if you have a lateral transfer, how does their PTO, since we're going to be reducing it down, so what if they have more PTO that year assigned to them, will it be reduced?
As presented.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
one of the other reasons for bumping the comp time up to 240 is we live and work in an uncontrolled environment. So I don't want a one-year employee come in with 24-hour shifts, blowing me out. You burn through that, next thing you know, you're on disability at 60% and you have nothing to cushion it. So I wanted to give folks that do want that extra insurance an ability to rack that 240 hours up. So if something does happen, God forbid it doesn't, but if it does, they have a little bit more cushion right there to support them to get healed up as well, since we do live and work in a controlled environment.
As Dan's preparing some of these numbers, I'm going to pass down some documents that we do need signatures on. The first one coming down is that salary ordinance amendment for the nurses. The second one is the meeting minutes, previous meeting minutes. I don't think I signed that one. I didn't mean to cut you off, Keenan. I didn't sign all those. Yes. Yes, I told her that after I didn't realize it. There's been a lot brought to us this evening, and I always like to ask, is there any input from the public? I mean, is there anyone that has questions of us or of Keenan that
Sorry, Jason.
address us in any way on these issues? All right, I just always like to give the opportunity.
Absolutely.
And what else have we got on? Hang on just let me.
There's like
the last thing that was on there? Was there something from Trey Hollingsworth too? Sadly, I need to tap this guy again for some other things that we've got here, so I don't want to bother him. I was going to see if we could move on to something else. One thing that I can just kind of explain while, if you don't mind standing there while he does this. The rainy day fund that we just talked about, that we can move a portion of the budget over to rainy day. And I kind of liken that as moving it out of checking over to the savings account. It's there in case we need it, but keep it out of checking, and I won't spend it at TJ Maxx, so we'd move it over to the savings. So anyway, that is kind of an option for us. And we do, at this time, have that 15% option, which Dan can give us a figure of what that max would be when he gets there. Or we can go below that if there's a comfort level that feels better. But I kind of wanted to get your points of view on how do you feel about that? Are you okay with moving some of that money over? And if so, what percentage would you feel comfortable at?
I want to know what the balances are, Red,
Okay,
first.
all right.
Hinder that. Definitely okay with that.
Let me look at the.
Yeah, we've got some financial paperwork here. Take one and then hand it down, and that'll give you some ideas of where the balances are.
And because I'm the new person, I have a question. Like, does the rainy day fund earn a higher rate? Like, it doesn't.
It doesn't earn anything.
Okay, it doesn't.
It's just where we hold money.
Okay,
So
I
it
just didn't
doesn't,
know
no money
there
is
was a benefit in keeping it in that fund in particular.
get deposited in there. It doesn't have a rate or anything.
Okay.
You know, it's just,
I don't
yeah,
know.
it's just like a savings
I thought there
account.
might be some financial benefit to have it in that fund. Okay.
So those are some things to think about that are still on our
Other-
agenda for this evening.
I guess other than if you put it in the rainy day, it can be used for anything.
Oh.
There's certain, a lot of things can come out of general too, but if you had money, say, highway, it couldn't be used for something else.
Got it.
That's one.
So that would be the benefit.
Yes.
Okay, also coming down is the ordinance
This down faster.
2022-3.
Keenan, you can probably sit down while we calculate. I don't want
He's
you
like,
just,
I'm a military man. I'm
I
just
know.
standing here.
I feel bad you're just standing there, so. Yeah.
Thank you for
Thank
all of
you,
your
Keith.
homework and all the work.
He's working on the numbers. He's got to get the numbers together before we approve it. He's computing. On those minutes, there's several there. I think I forgot to sign one of them.
There's just one though, right?
Yeah, those are just one spot, correct.
Extra copies.
Excuse me, I'm getting dry.
Can we go get your water?
Oh. Put 'em in.
Got gum.
Excuse me, I get a dry cough.
I don't like it.
So that we approve.
There were four.
Four.
1, 2, 3, yeah, 4.
Oh, yeah, I found it. Get that one. We'll get it afterwards.
The balance sheet, it shows you how much money is in every account.
Okay.
And this starts this year. Shows you how much tax revenue we're going to anticipate collecting and then how much we're spending. See,
Spending
budget where we're spending
more
more,
than we're getting.
but we had quite a bit.
Is this one?
But you can't do that every year.
Right. Right. So there would be no money.
Tony's not, Grant's not here. Grant?
Wait a minute, I got it in the wrong area.
First column, we're going to look to see how much of this money we want to take out and put into rainy day, which is probably somewhere towards the end.
Tony, no? Okay, thank you.
Tony, you want to give us an update about snow removal over the last few days? Can you report on that since Grant's not here?
Look in the middle.
Oh, okay. So page 3. The rainy day funds over to the right.
Tomorrow, we have our department head meeting, and we're going to talk about getting time together to do a kind
And you use some private contractors?
We did, and again, in the fourth quarter, come up, we did have some complaints on some of the neighborhoods. None of them that I'm hearing complain were the contractors. There were some of the areas that we had hit. I think there was just some things that we had to work out on that too. But for all intents and purposes, I haven't seen the final bills from them. I don't know how many times they've been out. Our guidance to them prior to was, because they were concerned about just taking it once. Our guidance to them was act like you live there and plow accordingly, and we'll make it right. It doesn't need to be spotless because we've all got other things to do. Wallace did most of it. So they took it to heart. I want to say they hit 3 or 4 times. Once we do the postmortem, though, we'll figure out exactly how much the contract cost. Still believe it saved us money overall. So we'll figure that out. It's probably not next council meeting, but the council meeting after. We'll probably have to give you some numbers. Excuse me. Next council meeting, I won't be here, and I don't necessarily want Grant to come up and speak in front of you guys anymore. So. We'll take his input, but I think I'll probably go to speak for the highway department. Overall, a lot of compliments. There were some stuff today that we're going to have to get. Some of the access roads from I-69 that weren't necessarily done well. We're going to have to get some of those that we kind of elected. Some of the roundabouts, I think there was miscommunication with NDOT. We're going to work that out too. So overall, for the amount of snow we had, went very well.
How's that going on that roundabout there at Henderson Ford? Is that getting taken care of, that water issue, drainage issue?
Yeah, so we're working through all that. So yeah, as soon as we get feedback from others as well, we'll relay the information that we saw, the good, the bad,
I just wanted to,
and then how we're going to.
are you proposing?
Will you take
any
feedback
change
from
with-
council members?
I want to talk to you after the meeting about something. Just, yeah, it's a one-off situation. Yeah.
Thank you, we appreciate that.
Oh. Paramedic only? Oh, okay. So,
Here comes our
22. 1586 is okay.
Oh,
on
Mike's
that.
going to talk to us.
I did this 1, 2, 3, 4.
Working on the numbers,
5
yep.
for EMT.
Hey, Mike, can you put,
Yeah, we
turn
can't
that
hear you very
microphone
well.
towards your mouth a little
Yeah.
bit, please?
Yes, thank you.
On.
For calculation purposes.
We're not hearing you.
I don't think your mic, I don't think your mic is on any longer.
Or it need be. Okay, I think I got
It's
this
dead.
ready for him. Thank you. You're welcome.
Not everyone is born with a voice.
Are you ready for this one?
Deb's to the rescue. That it's dead.
He's here to get the mic because it's dead. Right? Hence the coroner.
Oh, that's awful. You people are terrible.
All right, we're getting slap happy.
Go Deb.
Hey, you know what? Whoa. Wow, I got a room now. No, I just want to thank God that I've been called to do what I do. And I got some numbers for y'all, for the coroner's office. Last year was a record year. I think I shared with you before. The breakdown is such: 121 cases. Don't you start. 121 cases. In 2020, it was only 95. So I believe we set a record. 22 overdoses, 12 suicides, 1 infant death, 5 auto accidents, 3 motorcycle accidents, 3 other types of accidents, and 75 medical investigations. Yeah, you said something a while ago, I think it was significant. COVID has changed some things, but there's a lot of things that have changed. So far this year, since January 1st, we've had 25 calls, 4 suicides.
Since January 1st of
Since
this year?
January 1st. 3 gunshots and 1 overdose that were intended suicides. I'm not going anywhere. It is trying sometimes because of the line of work that I'm in. That being said, I've got a group of people that I want to give thanks to. I'm not going to list every one of them because I'm going to forget them. Sheriff's Department, City of Martinsville Police and Fire Departments, Morgan County EMS, Mooresville EMS, Fire, Brown Township, Mooresville PD, Monrovia, all these areas that have departments have been such a godsend and a help to me. Because I'm old military. I'm one of those people that I won't ask anybody to do anything that I won't do. And I'm so thankful for this county because there's a group of people that work in this county through COVID and everything else, and through planning and mass casualty planning and everything else. It's wonderful to have that cohesive unit that works together. All of our differences go aside. You got a pretty good group that's taking care of this county. So I just wanted to say thank you. I wanted to put those numbers out there because I got to tell you, when you said things were changing, they are. You as the council need to be prepared for that. I spoke to the commissioners this morning. They as commissioners need to be prepared because there are things that are changing, things that are happening. I could preach a sermon on it right now, okay, because these times have been foretold. There's a wonderful book called the Holy Bible that says that. I'm not trying to infringe on anybody. But we need to be prepared for what we're dealing with right now and what we're seeing right now. But hold your chin up, hold your eyes up, and everything will be fine. Thank you.
We appreciate you. Thank you. Dan has went to get some final numbers for us, so did you have anything?
Going back to the rainy day discussion, I have more questions for Dan because I'm not seeing any encumbrances listed, and I want to know if he's calculated the 21 encumbrances.
Okay.
Maybe Jim Wisco wants to talk about the IU score on Saturday.
Tony, since we're wasting time, I've been meaning to ask you this. So since you don't have to get up, it's a silly question. So since I'm a Butler grad, big basketball fan, are you related to the Hinkle family?
Distant cousin.
Okay.
Okay.
I've been meaning to ask you this for a while.
His father and my great-grandfather were brothers.
That's cool.
So were you named after the coach?
No, I was named after both of my parents.
Okay.
Actually, I named after both of my grandparents, after both of the grandfathers.
Gotcha.
My mom's father's name was Anthony, and my dad's father's name was Jay, and I'm Anthony Jay. So it just happened to be Tony. Well, and you do know that Tony Hinkle's real name is not Tony. It's Paul.
That is true.
It's Paul Hinkle, but everybody called him Tony. But he did come to my CYO basketball games when I was younger.
Right?
I'd met him a couple times, and as a young kid, I'm like, who's this old guy that doesn't, I don't really know who he is. And then when I was in high school, well, obviously before the internet, Sports Illustrated, that's really where you go to get sports before ESPN really took off and really dominated where the sports world was. Sports Illustrated names the 50 greatest coaches of all times, and he makes the list. I'm like, wow, maybe I should pay attention to this guy. Kind of showed myself. Yes.
Right.
So, and to kind of touch back away from that topic, though, not setting precedent about changing salary ordinances, obviously. We don't want to do that. However, we have talked about restructure in the highway department previously.
So you'll be prepared at budget time to present us with those changes?
We were probably going to present those prior to budget time. However, understanding the concern that because we have been working on this. We are cognizant of the not free-willing to do that, and it is of
We're only giving a pass because he's a new head of that department. You're not new. But we want to keep you.
That's fair. That's fair. I understand. Well, and to be fair, I will say to caveat that I'm not asking for my raise yet this year. However, I do want to look at adding something for an intern. So there are some things that we do want to talk about coming forward, and understand that it's going to be a discussion. But we'll bring our numbers together. Probably won't be as nice as what Keenan has, but
We'll always entertain a discussion. You may not get the same answer, though.
Absolutely. Understand that we'd like to have that discussion moving forward. So if Dan has the numbers, then I'll let
I think he's got them.
Okay, thank you, appreciate it.
Has everybody got their copy?
Yes.
Okay, Dan, you want to kind of lead us there?
Well, I took the numbers that, the salary proposals and converted it to hourly rates.
Okay.
And changed from the tiers to the 5 tiers for the EMTs and 3 tiers for the paramedics. And also, I used the proposed amounts for the director and deputy director and duty officer. So I took their overtime hours and took that times time and a half and added it to the straight time of the 2,080 hours. So the equivalent hours for pay purposes is 3,364 hours, and that's what I divided into each of the proposed salaries to come up with these per hour rates.
You're good. Thank you.
Was there a change to the PRN EMS paramedic rate? Was that previously 22?
The EMS paramedic, the PRN paramedic, they're proposing to change to 22.
What was it before? Do you know? 1960, okay, thank you.
Pretty much anymore today, you can't get a
Right.
paramedic through the door PRN unless you're in that $21, $22 an hour.
Right.
Plus, we're very selective on our PRN because they aren't covered by the I don't have a huge pool yet.
Okay.
I'm hoping to draw more.
And as we discussed, I don't have an issue with it because PRN medics that will come in and work, same with EMTs, it'll keep our overtime down if you do have a bigger pool, which I would like you to get, because that way we're not paying overtime.
He's grabbing one more paper for us. And then we'll be able to answer your questions on, thank you for your patience, everyone.
Did anybody write down his formula, Dan's 3364 divided by, was it hours? To get the rate of pay?
Yes. There's about 12. We have a comedian up here. Deb said she forgot to start recording in this, so we were going to have to start all over. You're funny, Deb.
Sheriff, you want to give us an update about the road conditions in the last few days?
Actually, we had really good road conditions because people kind of heeded to what we said to stay home.
Mm-hmm.
So our crashes, I mean, we were very, very good. I think Scotty can attest to this. Our calls, total life was way down, call.
That's good.
Good.
They advertised the heck out of it, and people just decided to stay home, which is good, and they gave the road crew a chance to
Yeah.
what they need to do.
Well, and I think the commissioners made a good call with the advisory to red. And
The county Facebook post that I made for Friday was shared 627 times.
that's
Wow.
great.
And I like that the schools called off early, too.
Yeah, there's a lot of e-learning schools that help, which they could do pretty on the go.
Mm-hmm. Proactive to it. That's great. Mr. Collier? You mentioned the Arpa Committee. How will that be formed, and what, are there requirements to it of who it needs to be, or do you?
From our original, correct me if I'm wrong, the commission, we wanted to put together a
Okay, all right.
We need to narrow down where we want to funnel that money, and Kelly is pretty good at giving us the time frame that we have to get it funneled by.
How many of you on that committee?
I'm glad we had, sir.
We don't want to get it back, and we want to get it spent in time.
That's right.
Right.
Every penny of federal money needs to be spent.
Is it 7 on that committee? You want to come up and explain that? 7 on that committee?
It's an advisory committee. They're going to advise.
I leave and I come back and we're talking about funnels.
So,
We'd all agree
it have to be, okay.
a bigger group to help us have guidance.
But it doesn't have to be 4 of us. It can, you're going to have 3 of you, and then you'll pick. Oh,
You're saying you get 3 appointments throughout the community.
We get,
We
the
get
council
3.
gets to appoint 3 people.
it's 3
What about them?
They get to appoint however many they want,
of the 7.
that they put in the ordinance.
How soon are you looking to fill the, or like create that committee?
A couple months
While
ago.
we're here this evening, if there's an interest, could we pick those from our?
Sure.
Kelly, I think you'd be a great addition.
I do
I mean, I just want to
If you
annoy
have time.
Brian, but, you know,
If you have time,
I'd be happy to serve.
at least one of ours should be Kelly.
Right.
One of ours should be Kelly.
She does that for a living.
We got for us, Dan. We'll talk about that in a minute.
Did you do anything on the other?
We're ready to move on with EMS. We need to,
What do you?
we haven't voted on EMS yet. We need to move forward on EMS.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's more questions.
Okay.
I didn't have any more questions. I had questions on the rainy day situation.
Oh, okay, all right. Does anyone, are there any questions, any further questions on the 2022 salary ordinance amendment to EMS? Okay, and you've all had a chance to look at it, so I look for a motion.
Sprinkle, I'll make the motion to approve the salary ordinance amendment that Keenan has brought before us.
Okay, we have a motion by Troy Sprinkle
Jason Maxwell seconds.
and a second by Jason Maxwell. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Now you need to also, I'm sorry.
Motion carries 7-0.
Now
Do
you
you want to
also
use
need-
one of these as the
Yes.
signature one? So I'm going to use this
Now
one
you
as
also
the sign.
need to vote on the employee handbook change, Doree, right? And there are 2 ordinances on that. The PTO change and lateral transfer change.
Vicki Kivett makes a motion, we approve the PTO change and the lateral change.
Change. I was- Well, look,
Second.
we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. That's good, because we had already signed it.
Motion
psychic
carries
vision.
7-0. Now, back to the rainy day fund.
Yeah.
Increase for the auditor?
We've talked about, yeah. You slid that one down too? You are earning your pay tonight. That's what he went and filled up.
Look at the back of the room.
It wasn't in the motion, but we could amend the motion.
Oh, second reading, that's what he's saying.
Amend the
You want to
motion.
clarify the motion to,
I will make, well, who made the motion originally?
Right.
Needs to be that person.
Traditionally.
I think Jason
No,
made the motion. Jason seconded the motion.
for the salary amendment. It's not for that. It's for the ordinance one. It's the one Vicki needs to amend the motion. It's for the PTO change.
To forego
The
the,
first reading of the PTO ordinance and the lateral transfer. Amend that to waive the second reading, and I will second that
Waive,
amendment.
I amend my motion to waive the second reading of my foresaid motion.
which was the PTO and the lateral transfer change.
PTO and lateral change.
So we have a motion,
And I seconded
and
her
Kelly
amendment.
Acala seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you, Josh.
All right, back to the rainy day money.
You want me to just do it from here?
Yeah, just give us,
So rainy day, as I mentioned before, you can go up to 15% of the budget for transfer. The budget was $23,556,509, and 15% of that is $3,533,476. So you can transfer anything from $0 to the $3.5 million.
Dan, do you have encumbrances from 21 listed in here? Because I'm not seeing, it
No,
says,
we don't have those finalized.
so we don't know how much additional is going to be coming out from encumbrances of what
Encumbrances.
we don't know that yet?
Not a huge amount.
Okay.
Yeah, never is. But no, that's another story.
But it's a fun one.
Oh, no, it isn't.
And Terry,
When you get the encumbrances
He's just
done, can
like
we get an
poking.
updated number?
Poking.
An updated?
You know, when you make the slightest little change in things,
I know.
it just confuses the heck out of some people.
I bet it does.
And that's all I'm gonna say.
Okay.
so,
have Dan tearing out his hair.
does anyone have questions or recommendations on the rainy day money, on the amount to move from, or to the rainy day fund? The maximum is $3,533,476.
To see you move no more than $1 million out of the general fund into rainy day.
No more than $1 million?
Why, can I ask what?
I just feel like when you look at our general fund specifically, we're beginning the year with 14 million. If we spend all of our budget, which we probably won't, we talked about that at budget time, where we'll have 10% of that of budgeted expenditures left. But still, we're already slated to end the general fund, $6,000 less than where we're starting. So I feel like that's a significant decrease already, and so there's no reason to take more than $1 million out of the general fund.
What, transfer out of rainy day to
Back to
general?
general fund?
No. But you can budget it
But
and
you can
spend it
spend it
out.
out of rainy day,
Right,
right.
yeah.
Anything.
It's a one-way gate.
One way, yep.
I tend to look at things conservatively too, and seeing the decreasing balance of the general fund, I would agree with Kelly's assessment, and $1 million is a nice round figure.
Are we hearing that in the form of a motion?
Normally at 10%, it would be the,
$1,300,000.
We don't have to move a certain percentage amount.
Yeah, it
We can
doesn't
say
have
a
to be
dollar
that.
amount,
No,
and then Dan will, as long as it's under 15%.
but we've always put 10% in, haven't we, Dan?
Well, we haven't
Last
done
couple
this.
years?
We've only done this a
done this
couple
one
of, yeah,
time.
one time. We've only done it one time.
Only one time.
But that was the only time it was available, right? This is a
No,
recent
it's
change?
available every year.
It was available.
available
It's
for
just,
many years.
we hadn't implemented it.
I thought it was a new thing the last time.
No.
I'll make a motion.
Go ahead.
I'll make a motion that we transfer $1 million out of the general fund into the rainy day fund.
Chip Keller will second.
We have a motion by Kelly Acala and a second by Chip Keller. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0 at the $1 million amount to the rainy day fund. Is there anything else that needs to be brought before us? Any other business?
If you want to talk about lit rates,
Oh, yeah, that was on there, wasn't it?
I mean, you don't have to, but we can.
Yeah, go ahead. Tell us about it, Dan.
Okay, here, let me give you this handout.
It went all the way forward. Pass that down. Wake up, Becky.
I sent out a email here several weeks ago about some proposed changes I'm proposing to the local income tax rates. And what started this is that, and I won't go unless you want me to, long drawn-out explanation of what the levy freeze rate for local income tax, but that is the rate that was adopted several years ago and was in place for, I want to say 5 years, 4 to 5 years. It actually was in place 1 year more than it should have been, but we won't go into that. It's been corrected. But that levy freeze rate was where back there was a time when local income tax could be used in replacement of property taxes for increases in the budgets or the property funded through local income tax. So the property tax levies were froze, and the budgets or the funding for budget increases came from local income tax. And then that's no longer authorized under the local income tax statute, but we're grandfathered in because we had that at one time, and quite actually, the county is obligated to continue that part of the income tax rate from now until, what I'd like to say, the law changes. Because there's a certain amount of the levy that is being funded with income taxes. Right now, more money is coming in from that rate than what can be distributed to the units of government. And it's grown to the point to where we have almost, it's like knocking on the door of $1 million excess that we're collecting and setting aside that can't be distributed to units, or nothing can be, it can't be used for anything other than to be put into this fund called the stabilization fund. And the stabilization fund is used in years when not enough money from income tax is coming in to fully fund those levy replacements. But now we have the opposite situation where we have more than enough coming in, and more by the tune of $1 million. So that actually, something needs to be done with that, because there's no need to be charging an income tax rate for something that can't be used other than just putting away into the stabilization fund. Right now, that stabilization fund has a balance of $3.7 million in it. So that levy freeze rate could be reduced, but you got to be careful with how much you reduce that, because you need to do that gradually, because if by chance you get the income tax or get the rate reduced to where not enough income tax is coming in to fully fund the levy replacement, then you can't increase the rate to make it up. You can only decrease it now. You can't increase it. And so that's something you need to just do gradually. But the county could easily reduce that rate by 5 cents right now. If you look at the one chart that I sent down, you'll see that the current income tax rates for the county is, we have a certified shares rate of $1. We have that levy freeze rate of 0.268. We have a public safety rate of 0.25, economic development rate of 0.2, and then the property tax relief rate of the 1.002. So if we were to reduce the levy freeze rate by 5 cents, then that would reduce that down to 0.218. I'm proposing that 5 cents reduction be added to the public safety rate, and then that additional 5 cents of the public safety rate would be allocated or dedicated to PSAP funding. And that would help with the PSAP funding. I took a look at the statute, to make sure this can be done. I've already run this past the Department of Local Government Finance, and they said, yes, this is something that's doable, you can do this.
Okay, so it's already been ran by the DLGF?
Right, I've
Okay.
already run it by DLGF. And so the process to do this would require a public hearing for with the adjusting of those income tax rates. And then the county council would adopt ordinances changing the rates. And DLGF requires that in the ordinance, adopted ordinance, that every rate that the county has is addressed in that ordinance, so it's not piecemeal.
Right.
So that, that ordinance would stand alone with what the new rates are gonna be, even though some of those rates are gonna be exactly the same as they are currently. But bottom line, the levy freeze rate needs to be reduced.
Dan, at some point, if we are continuing to bring in enough up to fund that 3.7, at some point, is there a way, has the DLGF said, that we can use that money in the lit stabilization fund? Would that take a petition? It would take a petition of legislation?
That would take legislative.
Because there's very few counties that use that. I mean, we are one of the very few. There's some.
There's some.
But I'm just saying, like, if we continue to grow and we continue to have good income tax, and that's completely funded, that money is really taxpayer money that needs to, we don't really want it sitting at the, I mean, it's good in case we have a decrease in income tax. But if we continue to add to it, so it's good that we're reducing, possibly reducing the rate, because that would be a good thing, because you don't need excess money just sitting.
If the economy continues here in Morgan County as it has,
Right.
the money is going to continue to grow. That needs to be looked at, if not every year,
right.
but, more frequently than it has been. And you can always do a reduction in the income tax rate, or you can allocate it to one of the other.
But we just have to be careful, because the levy freeze, once reduced, can't be increased.
Right. And you could go more than 5 cents now, but I feel real comfortable with 5
Yeah.
cents.
Yeah.
Baby steps.
But I guess what I'm asking tonight, is this something that you'd consider? And if so, I can get the public hearing notice and all that started. But I think this could solve a lot of
I think it's a good plan.
fiscal problems.
Yeah,
right
I
now.
think so too.
So 2-month process, a public hearing month, and then,
Right,
or,
right.
I like the idea of the funding going for the PSAP.
Yeah, where we could have shortfalls, potentially.
And that's a change that occurred here in recent years where public safety money could be allocated to PSAP.
Digging into that. Is that something we would want to ask Dan to prepare for our next meeting, to be a
I
public
think so.
hearing?
Be comfortable.
We'll do that.
All right. Anything else needs to come before us tonight?
Census right now.
I got this real long story.
We don't want to hear it. We thank everyone for taking the time and being patient with us and being here, and we appreciate the opportunity to serve.
We're coming down to sign, or
No, I think
we got
I think
everything?
everything's there. I think I need to sign a couple more of those meeting minutes. I didn't sign all copies, but when you bring them back down. All right, so I look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Vicky Kivett.
Roy Sprinkle, second.
Roy Sprinkle, second.
A
All
motion
those in
to
favor
Kim says
signify
she
by
needs to
saying
sign
aye.
some of the
Aye.
minutes
Adjourned.
I feel like you need a gavel.
I wanted to nay.
That know the Rakita family,